Hello, friend. Hello, this is Legal Design Thinking in Real Life, and I'm your host, Hannele Korhonen. And this live series is provided to you by Lawyers Design School, which is a learning hub for lawyers and legal teams to adopt the skills and mindset of legal design. My guest today is Kerri Salata, and we're going to talk about legal design in compliance. I've been wanting to dive deep into this topic for a long time because I think it's a perfect fit for legal design, to be honest. That compliance space cries for human centricity and simplification, at least in my opinion. So I'm really happy to talk about it today with Kerri. Hello, Kerri, and welcome.
Hello, Hanel. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
So great to have you, and I think that we are now adding a new country to the guest list. Where are you joining us from?
All right, I'm in Toronto, Canada, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, just to be very clear. So it is 8 a.m. right now. Good morning to everyone in Toronto, Canada, on the eastern side.
Oh, perfect! Thank you so much for waking up so early. Uh, for the rest of the world who are already awake.
Again, I'm happy to be here. So thank you.
Yeah. So, but if you're up and watching this live, please join the discussion in the chat. You can also ask questions, and I'll have Kerri to answer them as best as she can. But let's get going, Kerri. Could you first introduce yourself? Tell us a
Sure.
little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hello, world. My name is Kerri Salata. I am a founder and principal lawyer of my own law firm, which is Kerri A. Salata Legal Professional Corporation. I do provide legal advice, kind of in-house legal advice to corporations. And then on that side of the business, I also do a lot of policy and procedure work. So we do simplified language. I try to infuse legal design into everything that I do. And my focus is banking and securities law. I'm also the CEO and founder of a business called Comply With Me, which is a compliance consulting firm that focuses on providing interesting education to securities registrants across Canada.
Oh, that's so cool. Interesting education. That's a nice
That's right. It's not often you
addition.
hear interesting with compliance, right? But that's that's what we try to do.
Yeah. How did you end up working with legal design and to combine that with your practice?
That is such an interesting question, and it's a multiple year journey for me. So originally I did this master's in law at the University of Toronto, where I studied innovation law and technology. And I was introduced to this amazing course called Design Thinking. And I didn't even know that this concept existed. And my professor, Chris Ferguson, he's a master in this industry. And so it was fantastic to learn from the best. I got a lot out of the course. I loved it. I thought, where has this been all of my life? I've been practicing in an area, banking and securities, which is a bit on the dull side sometimes. And I thought, yeah, legal design and design thinking could be infused in these areas. So I took the design thinking course that led to taking a service design course that led to a certificate in learning design. It led learning experiential design, we call it. I took a behavioral economics course. I kept going. And so I think I really found my calling in legal design. And then I was lucky enough to attend the summit. We were talking about this just before we went live 2 months ago. I cannot believe it. And this is where I met you, Hanel. But actually, I have to say that your broadcasts and the information that you provide on the web is a fantastic resource, especially for people who are learning about legal design. And so 2-3 years ago, when I started down this road, you were a great resource. So thank you very much. And I just loved it. And so I've been building on my legal design knowledge, and that's what I do. I would actually say that I'm a legal designer now.
Oh, that's perfect. You're combining the design thinking in your advisory and also in your compliance work.
That's right.
So what about Comply With Me? When was that born?
So comply with me. Again, when you start working in legal design, you can generally see the uses and applications of legal design. And so I was working with a lot of compliance clients, in-house counsel, compliance groups, and I was helping them to develop their policies. So we were plain languaging them. We were doing, the ISO standards, creating the white space, adding in infographics, doing all this really interesting stuff. We were also creating these forms that were making it easier for people to actually comply. And the one thing I kept noticing is that it wasn't really employee understanding. It was employees forgetting to comply with the law and regulation. And so Comply With Me kind of grew from there. So we were doing all this policy work. It was great. People were loving it. They were finding information easy to find. But then ultimately, that information was going on to a cloud somewhere. And although the policies are easy to look through, it's easy to find the information that you want, but sometimes it's about hammering home the message to the employees. This is how you comply. This is how you escalate an issue. And I wanted to create educational compliance videos that were memorable, because if you create something memorable, people are more likely to remember to comply. And so that's where Comply With Me went. I went down this journey of exploring how can we create interesting and memorable educational compliance content that people actually want to watch. And that's where Comply With Me came from.
Oh, that's so interesting, and so wonderful to hear you combining these different approaches to compliance, like design, but also how to help people to remember and help them to comply. So like learning techniques or pedagogical approach as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, can you still hear me? There seems to be some
if I could
lagging.
maybe talk like a little. Oh, yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, I can. There's maybe there is some lagging or something.
We're good?
Yeah. Yeah.
The weather's not great here, so maybe maybe it's the rain.
Yeah. So let's talk some more about compliance. Since you are working with teams and organizations, what would you say, what are the common pain points you see a team struggle with compliance?
Yeah, so that is actually a very good question. And we talked a lot about, there are so many uses for legal design in compliance. The pain points that I often see, again, it comes back to employee understanding. I actually believe that most people aren't out to do the wrong thing. Most people want to do the right thing and they want to comply. And it's employee understanding of how to comply, or employees are just forgetting to comply. And so a great example of this now, Hanel, I know that you did mutual fund compliance for a little while. So your background is in this, you understand this. A great example, and I think we would see this commonly across most organizations, is a failure to tell the organization about your outside activity. Is this true? It's true across the world. So it's not that policies and procedures don't exist within the organization to deal with outside business activities, but every organization has to deal with conflicts of interest, because conflicts of interest can impact how you do your job, the decisions that you make for your client. And so this is a very simple example. This is also an area where generally, if a regulator comes to do an audit, they're going to find that people have not disclosed their outside activity. It's low-hanging fruit. It can lead to penalties, fines, litigation, reputational impact, all sorts of things. And it's just this little tiny, someone just forgot to disclose their outside business activity. And so I find that it's employee understanding and just remembering what the compliance issue is, right? Remembering the regulation, remembering to report that outside activity, remembering to tell somebody that you do it. It's not that you're trying to hide it, it's that you just forgot to report it. So that's number one. I think employee understanding, and then number two, employees are just forgetting to report the thing. And so I think when you're in a compliance group or a legal group that supports compliance, you really have to ask yourself, am I doing what I need to do so that employees understand how to comply with the regulation?
That's I'm getting all sweaty when I remember those those incidents, because even I, as a compliance officer, really had to like focus that I remembered to report my own, let alone then try to make all the employees report there. And it's
Right.
exactly what you say, that it's not like if anybody's doing anything wrong. It's just that we don't remember to report these minor details to. Yeah.
That's exactly it. I know, and right, it gives me the sweats too, because I used to have to deal with a lot of reporting, and we would always have to report, oh, like the regulators found this, and again, it is not that people are being malicious. They're not. They're just, whoops, I forgot. I took on being a hockey coach, and I am dealing with the financial books, and they just forget to think. It's a wonderful thing that they're doing, but they forget to think that, oh yeah, I need to report this thing. So again, like all of this, comply with me, legal design, all of it. What I'm trying to do with comply with me and the educational content, the educational videos, are to create memorable experiences so that people are remembering to report their outside activity. Again, it's not that they're not, it's not that they don't want to, it's that they're just forgetting. So that is a common pain point.
And how would you say that if you want to make memorable content, how would you say that legal design helps you to do that?
Well, I do have some slides. So maybe what I'll do is I'll try and share that presentation right now, and we can go through it. Okay, so let me try sharing my screen, Hanel.
Yes.
And window, and this one, and share.
Yes, now it's coming through.
Great. So again, this is my firm, but let's just skip over this. And let's talk about the fundamentals of a compliance program. So Hanel, you would know this because you were in compliance. Generally, what you have, you have a law or a regulation. You have to comply with that regulation within the organization. You create policies and procedures that allow you to comply with that regulation. Then you have controls in place. So you monitor, you test the regulation. Then you have to educate the employee on the regulation. And then when things go awry, you got to report. So generally, my firm and Comply With Me, we live in blocks 1, 4, and 8. So we do the policies and procedures, which we already talked about, and we do the employee education and training. This is how we use legal design and design thinking. Basically, we use a design thinking approach when we're creating these educational videos. So number one, we're finding out who the audience is. Now, we have a library of compliance videos available right now for registrants in the Canadian securities world, and they're accredited by the regulator. So what we did to create those videos is basically I went to registrants and I said, hey, we've created these videos. Would you watch these? and I got feedback. And I think that feedback, the loop, right? It's all about providing the user with information that they find valuable, that they're going to remember, and then getting their feedback and learning how to rejig, how to change that educational video so that it sticks more in their brains. So we do use legal design, design thinking. We do a lot of testing, and we collect a lot of data from our educational videos after people watch them. And so we talked a little bit about the problem, but let's drill in on the problem. Now, have you taken hours and hours of educational compliance? Yes. And
yes.
what is your feedback generally about that educational compliance?
It requires a lot of, I don't know, strength to sit down and read,
Reading,
patience.
clicking through PowerPoint presentations. You're also not working at the time that you're doing the compliance education. You are thinking about work and your emails keep coming in. You're checking your phone. You are trying to find anything but doing compliance education. It is a little on the mundane side, we shall say, okay? But it's necessary and it's required by regulation. And this is how a compliance group evidences that they have a policy and procedure and that you as an employee or as a compliance professional understand what that policy is. And we talked about this. If you don't comply, it can lead to all sorts of things. If you're a registrant, so someone who's registered in securities, you can have your registration suspended. Fines, you can get a fine personally, the firm can get a fine, and obviously poor reputation. So education is a big pain point. And so I thought, it's so boring. It's just how do you create something that people actually want to watch? And so this is where Comply With Me came in. So we take a different approach. Again, we use legal design and the design thinking process, and we infuse that into creating our educational content. And so we play around with different mediums. We do some animation, the crypto one, which I'll show a bit of a trailer later. We played around with some stock video and images, and we're really trying to create an experience for the registrant or the learner, the person who needs to learn the regulation, that makes it a little more interesting. So we want to deliver understandable and interesting content. Think of us like Pixar. We're not Pixar. I wish I was Pixar, but if you've heard, there were 22 rules of great storytelling posted by this writer from Pixar, Emma Coates. And it's great if anybody is thinking about writing or creating learning content, go and take a look at those rules. They're fantastic. And the one thing that they do say is that the learner, in this case, it's the viewer, but in my case, it's the learner. The learner has to see themselves in the characters and they have to empathize and they have to understand what the character is going through and why that's important. And so we have our own little Pixar formula. It is not to the same scale, but we provide short information blasts and we do short little knowledge tests. And then we do a break, go get your coffee, and then we repeat and we do it again and again and again. But we try to tell a story about laws and regulations. And so I know we had talked about outside activities and reporting your outside activity. This little guy in the left-hand corner of the screen, this is how we do outside activities. So number one, if you get in a fight, he's got a black eye. If you get in a fight and you get charged criminally, guess what? You have to report that. If you are on a board, the second guy in, you probably have to report that. If you have a medical license on the side, if you are responsible for a congregation, if you sell insurance, if you sell real estate, these are conflicts of interest. These are outside activities. And the reason we use a character is because we want people to see themselves in the character. We want the character to snap up and someone go, oh yeah, I sell real estate. I should probably report. And so it increases compliance. It increases the chance that the employee will report the issue if they remember. The right-hand side is one of our videos about seniors and vulnerable clients. And how we depicted this educational video is we wanted the senior to be strong. Seniors are strong. I mean, they've amassed, they've worked really hard their whole life. They have wealth, they are smart with investing. And so we depicted them by way of an oak tree. And the little owl is you, it's the registrant, the portfolio manager. And so throughout the educational videos, there's all these things that happen to this tree. There's a woodpecker that pecks it, and it's up to the owl to get rid of it. The woodpecker that pecks it, the red flags, these are red flags of financial abuse and vulnerability. And these are things that, as a registrant or someone who's working in the financial industry, you have to keep an eye out for. And so, are you more likely to remember a slideshow, or are you going to remember the mighty oak tree? And so that is essentially our formula. And again, Hannah, we talked about testing, and testing is really important, and it's part of legal design, and it's part of the design thinking process. And we showed our videos to registrants and people in the financial world, and we said, would you watch this, number one? And do you think that it stands out in the securities industry? And people said 100% yes. And so I have these really funny quotes that I got from the registrants during testing. So one of them said, training is like death by PowerPoint. So number one, if you're in a compliance group and you are providing PowerPoint presentations, this is how your registrants likely feel about those PowerPoint presentations. And then there's this other thing. People are busy, time strapped, and we want to get it done. So we talked a little bit about this, how you're checking your phone, you're busy, you're dealing with your client, you're dealing with your everyday job. And so you want to get it done, you want it to be streamlined, and really anything that will take your attention away from your job and allow you to focus on complying with the regulation, and how you do that is worth it for these registrants, these people that we tested. Yeah. And so that's essentially the formula. That's comply with me.
That's so brilliant in so many ways, and I must say that because all of the people that I've worked with in securities industry and mutual funds and or investment services and what have you, they are all really good people. So it's exactly what you say, that they want to comply, but how to make it for them so that it's easy for them. And I love the use of the storytelling, because that's like the oldest technique that we can think of, how we communicate and how we are able to remember things. It's through
That's
stories.
Right. Yes, and I think if you're looking at adult learners too, so we absolutely remember things from stories. Pixar, I don't think anybody will forget Up or any of these storylines, and we remember them because they're great stories. It's hard to tell a great story with law and regulation, but we do our best, and it is more likely to resonate with the audience when they can picture themselves in the image.
How do you come up with these stories and the characters?
Oh, honestly, it's just my weird brain.
Imagination.
But I have to say, so my next slide is about my team. And I really have a fantastic designer on in my team. And so you're really only as good as your team. And I do have an absolutely strong group of people that I work with. So we have a voice actor that's got the approachable voice that people really love. We have sound and audio. A lot goes into this. So there's recording studio time, there's video recording time, and then there's my designer, who really is the machine. So I have these weird ideas. I'm like, I think we're going to have to come up with a way to talk about seniors. And then I think, okay, can we do a mighty oak tree? She's like, sure, why not? so she comes up with the animation and the concepts, and she really builds. And I obviously provide feedback with the laws and the regulation, and then I sort of frame the storyline. I draft the scripts, and that's where my years of experience come in handy. But while I am building my experience with design tools and Adobe and whatnot, I'm never going to be a master designer, and this is where the team comes into play. And so they're very strong individually at what they do, and then we bring it all together, and that's how we create the videos.
Yeah, you don't have to do it all by yourself. When you have the multidisciplinary team, that's when the magic happens.
Absolutely. So I thought what I do is maybe just show, I have a 30-second clip of one
Yes,
of our
please.
trailer videos. So why don't I show that, and then
Yes.
people can get a flavor for what we do. Now, so this is just to warn everybody that when I was practicing, it's a little loud, it's a little heavy, but hey, you know what? It's 8:30 in the morning in Toronto, so let's wake everybody up, right? Okay, so I'm going to share the window and share.
Yes, it's coming through.
It's coming through. Great. Okay. And I am going to just play it and let me know if you can hear it. Just give me a thumbs up, Hanel, if you hear it. All right. So there we go. That's just a flavor of what we do.
That was the trailer for your work. But
exactly.
I'm
that course is the crypto course, and
yeah.
it's really timely too, because Sam Bankman-Fried, as you know, has just been sentenced for fraud on 7 counts, and so he does play a role in this crypto video. But you know, we teach people about crypto, like what does it mean, how does Bitcoin work, and then we talk about the regulations and the history of the regulatory. Basically how the regulators are building on crypto throughout the years and since about 2018. So we do a focused discussion on the laws and the regulations, but we also teach you a little bit about crypto. And we try to do it in a fun way so that you're also realizing that it's a risky product. And if you're selling it to your clients, you really have to be concerned about the fluctuations and the volatility and the regulations that exist out there. So that's just a trailer, but we have a lot.
Yeah, but I think that the crypto is so perfect example of the struggles that the compliance people have. Or well, anybody in the industry. It's not just compliance, but everybody, because you have the obligation to talk about the risks that are involved with the instruments, and how do you do that in a simple way when the instruments are so complex that there are all these variety of things that can happen, and yeah, so I can imagine that this animated stories can actually be really powerful with that.
Yeah, and again, it's all about creating, making it interesting. So if I teach you a little bit about crypto, you're going to understand it a little more, and you're going to be in a better position to advise your client. And then also they're accredited too. So we go to the regulators and we say, hey, what do you think about this? And so that helps to build continuing education credits, which each registrant needs to complete, as I'm sure you know. This is every 2 years you have to complete them, and the deadline's coming up December 2023. So FYI, any registrants out there, we have stuff online. So.
But I'm curious, how do you, because many times when I work with legal professionals and kind of help them to simplify their content, for example, policies or educational materials, and they are so afraid of like converting text into another format, so that they are afraid that they are not saying enough. How do you respond to that these animated content, and how did you overcome that fear?
You know what? That's a really good point. So to me, the purpose of education is to remind people that there is a policy that exists out there. So you're driving the person to the policy. It's not about regurgitating the policy into the video. It's about identifying the key points that you think people need to know, focusing on those in your storytelling, so that there's 1, 2, maybe at the most 3 takeaways that the person will get from watching your educational training. And that person will then walk away. Because ultimately, I mean, the reality is that when you're doing 4 hours of educational training, of compliance training, you're not remembering that information. I know that we all think that the materials that we're providing to the employees, oh, they're learning it, and that's actually not the way it works. People are distracted. After 4 hours of education, you're done. You're not focusing anymore. And ultimately, the reality is you're just doing it to get it done so you check off the box. And maybe that's enough. That might be enough. But you need to show the regulator that the person has ticked the box, that they've done the education. But it's better if the person remembers the thing that you've taught them. And what you're doing, again, is you're driving them to the policy. You are driving them to say, how do I report my outside activity? Oh, look, here's a great form. This form has been designed by a legal designer. It is easy to follow. I can find the information, and I know how to find the form that I need in order to report my outside activity. Because I remember, oh yeah, I got into a fight in Vegas, or, that's right, I am selling real estate. And whatever it is, you're triggering. So the point is to trigger, the point is to tell a great story. And it's hopefully with that trigger that you're going to trigger better compliance. You're going to avoid non-compliance, and then you're going to reduce those fines, reduce the reporting, reduce the need for monitor. Well, you have to monitor and test anyways, but things that you don't know, you're never going to know everything through monitoring and testing. So it's all about having people come forward on their own and triggering them to do that.
Oh, that's a good explanation. So you're not replacing the policies with these videos, but it's kind of a action layer, reminding them to act. And then there is still the policy, and there are still the forms, but those can be then designed to be combined with these videos.
That's right. So it all comes together as one nice, tidy legal design package. And ultimately, I think that that's what in-house compliance groups and in-house counsel should be aiming for. You create a great thing. Of course, you have the great thing. It complies with the law and the regulation. Now, how are you teaching people that you have that great thing, and to know that it exists in the first place, number one, and then to refer back to it? And how do you encourage them to remember that they have to report?
Are you saying you already shared some feedback from the testing? What would you say have been the results or impact of this, and in general of the better designed compliance content?
So time will absolutely tell, but I can tell you that we do do surveys at the end of all of our educational videos, and the purpose of the surveys seem obvious, but you need feedback about the content. And so one of the questions that we ask is, are you likely to remember this content? And we are getting lots of positives, so that's good, because ultimately it's about remembering. It's about making it just different enough that people will remember that they have to comply. And so the feedback has been positive. And I think, again, remembering to comply in the first place, that's going to have a knock-on effect to reducing reputational risk and reducing fines and reducing litigation and whatnot.
Yeah, so win for
win,
all parties.
That's right. Absolutely.
Hey, let's go back to you.
Sure.
I'm still curious to hear some more about your journey, or maybe experience when you have transitioned from the traditional lawyer role to apply these new methods and mindsets in your work.
Mm-hmm.
What has your own experience been like, this whole journey that you've taken?
It's been incredibly freeing, and I say that in the nicest way. when you are a corporate person and you've been in private practice and then in-house, there's a certain way to look at things and see things, and it's often very traditional. It's often, hey, let's see what the guy next door is doing and let's do that. And that, I think, is great. Sometimes it feeds innovation and sometimes it doesn't. And so for me, my journey through legal design has really been about freeing my mind and starting to think about things a little differently. Just because we create policies that are word-based and, maybe don't use white space and plain language, it doesn't mean that we have to. And we're seeing a massive shift too, with laws and regulations requiring understanding of the customer, understanding of the person who is reading it. So, whether you're talking about contract development, policies, procedures, board reporting, forms, whatever, they need to be plain languaged. And so we're talking about a traditional approach to, I'm a lawyer, I'm a compliance professional, I am going to get everything in this document that I possibly can to meet the regulator expectation. And we're seeing a shift now to, maybe I can do that by way of an infographic. Maybe I can explain it in a different way that's a little more plain language. Maybe I can build in a table of contents. And so that's usable. And I'm finding that my journey has been from very traditional law practice, compliance practice, to thinking differently about the practice of law just in general. And I think as lawyers, and especially compliance professionals, we think about meeting the law, meeting the regulation, and how do we get there? And we talked about the formula of creating a compliance program. These are the steps that I need to take. And you're very singularly focused on achieving those goals, and you're not thinking about the person who needs to learn it and who needs to read it and who needs to comply with it. And so that's what legal design has given me. And it has been very, very freeing, a bit scary too, because I sometimes feel like I'm on the edge of a cliff. I'm like, okay, I'm going to push this a little further. We're gonna make seniors a tree. Are we okay with it? And it's been the reception has been really great, but and freeing and wonderful. And I'm so happy that I've found the legal design community, because I didn't know it existed. And now we use legal design and compliance. I thought I was the only one, but I'm not.
Yeah, I love the word freeing. Yeah, it's definitely liberating to start doing things a little bit differently, and of course have a very useful framework for it.
Right. And then thinking about and getting feedback from the users that they're actually interested in the things that you're producing. That's wonderful too, because that's ultimately what legal design is all about. Are you creating something that is useful for a person? And when you get good feedback that, yeah, I'm finding this useful, I'm finding this interesting, I'm going to remember it, that it's really great.
Definitely. What would you say to if there is someone watching who is working in compliance and would like to get started with legal design? What would be your advice? What's the best way to start?
Yes.
Or first step even.
So first step I would say, and I found this the most helpful, is that you need to have the foundation of what design thinking is. So start with that. What is design thinking? Because ultimately, when we're talking about legal design, service design, learning experiential design, they all come back to the foundation of design thinking. So you need to start with that building block. That is your foundation. And then I say start exploring. So just because you work in, say, a traditional organization or a bank or a firm, it doesn't mean that people around you are not interested in innovation. And so take those principles and start infusing them into your work. Start asking people, what do you think would make this policy better? Do you think we can make this form a little better? What would you like to see? Start asking people. And, it doesn't have to be a formal fill out this survey and let me know. Ask people around you, ask your clients within the corporation, ask the clients what they want to see. And I think the more feedback that you get, the more that you will get positive feedback that design thinking, legal design, there is a place for it in compliance. So start with a building block of learning about design thinking. And then if you want to learn about legal design, look for resources. Hanel is a great resource. I have to say, her YouTube videos, they're free, they're available, and you can learn about all different applications from people around the world who take legal design, infuse it into their work, and come up with something amazing. And you too can do that.
Definitely. Anybody can do it. Anybody can get started and then start the journey and learn along the way by doing it. Before we stop, what are you currently working on? What's
So we have come up with a concept. I have a few partnerships on the go. So again, you're only as strong as your team. So I'm working with a cyber expert. We're going to come up with an educational video that talks about the do's and don'ts of cyber. But on Monday, I was with an expert in LinkedIn marketing. So we all need to learn a little bit about how to market ourselves better. She was great. So we were in studio recording, which sounds bizarre for a lawyer and compliance person to say they were doing, but yes, we were in studio recording, and her name is Leslie Hughes, and she's with Punch Media. And so look forward to one of our educational videos coming out that will focus on how to be a master at LinkedIn marketing while still complying with your regulatory obligations. So that's what we're working on right now.
Oh, perfect. Yes, marketing is, people will not know what you are doing unless you tell them about it. So
that's right.
Free video content is an excellent way to do that. Hey, where can people find more about you and your work?
Great. So let me just share my screen, and I will let everybody see that. So great. This is where you can find me. It's Kerri Salata, kerriasalata.com. There's my email address. You can find me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. If you want to talk more about legal design or law or compliance, I am happy to connect with anyone. I'm at Legal Design Canada on Instagram. And to comply with me, we have a business page, and we're always producing really funny. We try to have a different corporate voice, so non-traditional, funny marketing content. And so, we asked the other day what your favorite plain snacks were. So please feel free, add us to LinkedIn, add us to Instagram, and find us. That's how you find us.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerri, so much for joining us today. It's been so great to have this discussion with you.
I have enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Hanel, for giving me the opportunity. And again, you're a giant in this space, and I feel lucky to be here and sharing time with you today.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. Be sure to tune in again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.